Hey, we're continuing this series called Peace Amongst Panic, and my goal at the end of this series is to help you and myself to grow in our peace when it comes to God. And so last week, we talked about heaps of things last week, but just to bring a little refresher in, last week we talked about the fact that peace means harmony of mind, body, and soul. That's what Jesus talks about most in the New Testament. He talks about this harmony of mind, body, and soul. This tranquility, this calmness, this being still amongst ever-changing scenarios around you. That's what peace is. And so we talked about the fact that we can find peace, and there is a peace of God that is not the same as what the world experiences. In fact, we talked about the fact that the peace of God, the peace that Jesus offers us, is very different to what the world offers us, and it's actually far better than what the world offers us. We came to this conclusion last week that, and this tension that we wrestled with, the peace of God is not attainable by those who are not at peace with God. And so we talked about the fact that the first priority, the first step when we come over here, the first step is that we need to be at peace with God. We need to join in on the treaty that Jesus presented us when he died on the cross and rose again. And we're going to celebrate all those things next Sunday, and I'm very excited about it. So the peace of God is not attainable until we have the peace with God. Today what I want to do is I want to start talking about what the peace of God looks like, what happens when we start experiencing the peace of God. Maybe some of the things that we need to do in order to experience the peace of God. And so what I want to do is I want to take us to the passage we finished with last week, which was Colossians 3:15. Colossians 3:15. It says this: "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful." Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body we were called to peace, and be thankful. We're going to focus pretty heavily on the first sentence that Paul writes in chapter 3. We're going to focus on this. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts. Let the harmony of mind, body, and soul. Let the tranquility and the peace rule in your hearts. What essentially we're saying here is that we need to be putting peace into practice. You see, when we put peace into practice, it means that we're not enabling anything else to take over our heart. See, because that's what Paul's talking about. That's what Jesus was talking about, is don't let there be this like conflict over your heart. Peace or panic, peace or panic, peace or panic. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, right? So we need to be putting peace into practice. We've got to practice this. And right now, in the middle of the current climate that our society is finding itself in, is the perfect time for us to be putting peace into practice. There are so many uncertainties and so many unknowns. There are so many things that could go wrong. There are so many disturbances, and there's so many stresses and anxieties. You don't know about your health. You don't know about your job. You don't know about the finances. You don't even know about what tomorrow holds. It's a great opportunity for us to put peace into practice. Let's just look at that verse again. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. Be thankful. Can I ask you a question? What rules your heart most? What is ruling your heart now? Is it peace or is it panic? Is it peace or is it panic? Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. You were called to peace. This is not just something that we're asked to do. This is something that we're called to do. So what I want to do is I want to ask you something very specific. You've got your verse. I want to ask you the next sentence that's going to come up on your screen in a moment. I want to ask you this question. What's the next slide? Oh, yeah, thank you. Will we allow peace or panic to rule? That's the question you have to ask yourself this morning. Will you allow peace or panic to rule your heart? Will you allow peace or panic to rule? Which one is going to win the battle of your heart today? Which one is going to win the battle of your mind, of your soul, of your body? Which one are you going to allow? You see, peace is not just this supernatural bestowing on you that you have to just open your arms up and receive. God, Jesus is telling us that we have to put into practice peace. It's something that we do every single day. It's something that we work on, that we get better at, that we achieve certain goals with. And for now, some of us might just be amateurs in the way of peace. We might just be beginners in the way of peace. And we might find that panic overrides peace way more than it should. For others, maybe you're a bit older and you've been sort of following Jesus for a long time. Maybe peace has been something that's come quite natural to you lately, that you're not panicked about anything and you can move forward. That's awesome. But all of us here, all of us have a way to move forward. We all have a next step that's super essential for us to grab a hold of. What will we allow? Will we allow peace or panic to rule? And what my prayer is for you and what my prayer is for myself is that we would allow peace to rule. So we've got to ask ourselves this question this morning. How do we allow peace to rule? How do we allow peace to rule? How do we allow harmony? How do we allow tranquility? How do we allow stillness to rule in our lives? It's such a great question. It's a question that we're actually going to explore over these next couple of weeks. We might take a break over Easter Sunday, but over the next couple of weeks, we are going to look at what it means to allow peace to rule. Right now, I want to take us back to the Old Testament. And we don't do this very often. I'm actually excited to speak from it. But I want to speak from the book of Isaiah. Now, Isaiah was a prophet who, was one of these guys that was raised up to be a voice to bring the Israel nation back to God. And he was also a voice to what was coming ahead. And we pick out this specific verse that's going to challenge us today. It says this. So this is what the sovereign Lord says, Isaiah 28:16. So this is what the sovereign Lord says. See, I lay a stone in Zion, a tested stone, a precious cornerstone for a sure foundation. The one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic. Let's go back to the first part of that just for a moment, just the first part of that verse. See, I lay a stone in Zion. A stone in Zion. What does Zion mean? We got to understand what Isaiah meant by Zion. What he meant by Zion was security and protection. Security and protection. When you were in Zion, you were a part of a place that was secure and protected. This is an amazing, amazing connection right now. See, I lay a stone in Zion. Security, protection. Secure and protected. A tested stone, a precious cornerstone. See, what would happen is back in biblical times, when someone when kings of old were building their temples and their kingdoms, they would get one big, huge stone that they would establish as the cornerstone in building the rest of their kingdom upon. So Zion is not the foundation. Zion is what is being built on this precious cornerstone, a sure foundation, a tested stone. If you can connect the dots right now, Isaiah is talking about the future Messiah that is to come. The one who is to come is the one named Jesus. He was the one that claimed to be the Messiah that Isaiah proclaimed, and he is the cornerstone, the precious stone, the tested stone, the sure foundation on which Zion, security and protection would be built upon. That's who Jesus is. Jesus is the precious cornerstone. In fact, archaeologists have found King Solomon's temples. They've found sort of the remains of King Solomon's temples. And when they were digging up, they found a cornerstone that was 39 feet in length and weighed 100 ton. Weighed 100 ton. That is amazing. This is a huge, huge stone. They used to import them from all over the place, and they used to build their kingdoms upon it. Jesus is claiming here, Isaiah is claiming that there would be one who is to come. Jesus then claimed it himself, that he is the cornerstone, and the one who relies on it will never be stricken with panic. Wow. Peace over panic. Peace over panic comes when we have the right cornerstone in which to build our lives upon. Let me ask you this. What cornerstone are you building your life upon? What cornerstone are you building your life upon? Cornerstone, the most crucial rock in which a kingdom is built. What are you choosing as your cornerstone in which you're building your life upon? Many years later, after Isaiah prophesied or proclaimed that there would be a Messiah that is to come, when that Messiah had seemingly come in Jesus, and it was him who was proclaiming, I am the one that Isaiah talked about, I am the one that all the old prophets talked about, he himself, Jesus, told a story that I want to share with you right now. It's a story that you know quite well. You would have heard it through Sunday school or his kids or something like that. It's this story. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because it had a foundation on the rock. Remember that cornerstone foundation that we were just talking about previously? But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man, right? So those that hear it but don't put it into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose up, the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. Here's the thing. All of us are building something. We've all got a cornerstone, we've all got a foundation that we're building upon, and we're believing that this thing that we build upon will produce a kingdom or a life that will stand tall. Here's the principle that we need to understand. Our lives will either flourish or fall depending on what we have built them on. Our lives will either flourish or fall depending on what we have built them on. You are building something. We are all building something. We're all building a life. We're all building a kingdom. And depending on what you're building upon will depend on whether you flourish or whether you fall, whether you're wise or whether you're foolish. So let me ask you this really important question this morning. Does the foundation you are building upon give you peace? Does the foundation you are building upon give you peace? What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. When Isaiah told his story, he said that the temple Zion, right, that Zion, security and protection, was being built on the essential cornerstone. It was being built on tested stone. It was being built on the precious cornerstone, meaning it was being built on Jesus, right? And then Jesus tells the story many years later, and he says, hey, there's two men. There's the wise man and there's the foolish man. And the wise man built his house upon the rock, and it stood tall. But the foolish man built it on the sand. He did not listen to my words. He did not listen to the one who is to come. He built his house on the sand, and when things got hard and when things got rocky, that house fell. Which one gives people the most peace of mind? The one that stands tall and firm and forever, or the one that crashes at any sign of wind, storms, and waves? Which one gives you the most sense of peace, knowing that you can trust the foundation you are building upon? Does the foundation you are building upon give you peace? Hey, does the money that you've got stored up, does that give you any kind of peace, harmony of body, mind, and soul, tranquility, stillness, calmness? Does it give you any of that? What about the relationship you're building your life upon? The him or her forever type mentality. Does that give you any peace, really? What about your health? Well, I go to the gym, I eat well, I do all this. Does that give you a peace? Especially when the rug's pulled out from underneath you and your health's taken anyway. Now, what we learn through the Bible, what you and I learn through the Bible, what we learn from the life of Jesus is that there is only one assurity, and his name is Jesus. So here's the promise I want to give you this morning. The promise is this: God will give you peace. God will give peace to those who trust Jesus. Hard for me to say this morning. Let me say it again. God will give peace to those who trust Jesus. Because when we trust Jesus, there's an overwhelming peace that everything's going to come together. Everything's going to be good. Everything will work out in the end, because the one we're building upon is the one who defeated death, who rose again, who conquered sin, who enables us to follow the Father. That is who we follow. That is who we build our foundation upon. That is who we worship. That is who our life is built upon, because we trust him. And when we trust him and we continually trust him, peace gets given to us. I want nothing more than for you to have the peace of God, through peace with God. Peace with God, peace of God comes when we trust God. Do you trust him? Do you trust Jesus? Do you trust that it is a foundation worth building upon? Do you trust that it is the quintessential cornerstone in which all of us should be building our lives upon? And the thing you are currently building your life upon, a relationship, your health, finances, your job, success, stability, the thing that you're building your life upon, does it actually bring you peace, stillness, goodness amongst a world that is falling apart? Here would be my guess, especially at the moment. Many of us are realizing that the thing we used to build our lives upon has actually fallen away. It's actually crashed, because it was like building a life on sand. It's actually fallen apart. And I think what this coronavirus, this virus season is bringing in the minds of all of us is that we actually need to rely on something bigger. There is something bigger that actually gives us peace, harmony of body, mind, and soul. And I'm here to tell you that the answer is Jesus. That is the only peace worth building upon. Jesus is the only foundation worth building your life, your kingdom upon, because he gives us a peace that goes beyond all understanding, that is not of this world, but is of his world and his kingdom, and it will never end. So as we finish up, I want to ask you 3 questions that I want you to discuss now, even in your room. Even if the person wanted to watch Friends this morning, but they're stuck watching Newhart, right? And they're sitting there and they've got their arms folded and they're waiting for this end. I want you to look at them and I want you to ask these 3 questions. What's your cornerstone or foundation? Be honest with each other right now. What's your cornerstone or foundation? It might even be your family. It might be your spouse. It might be your children, finances, health, your job, your status. What's your cornerstone or foundation? Is it worth putting all your trust into it? Is it worth putting all your trust into it? At the end of the day, do you really believe you can trust it? And let me ask you this. This is the most important question of all. Do you receive peace from your foundation? Do you receive peace from your foundation? The good news is there is nothing wrong, and it's not too late to pull it all down, move over to the cornerstone that's worth your life and your building. It's not too late to pull it down, put it aside, and to rebuild on the foundation that is Jesus. You want to experience peace? You want to experience true peace? You want to start putting peace into practice? Start by trusting Jesus enough to build your life on him. God, right now, I just pray for everyone in their room. I thank you, God, that we are able to connect this way. And God, right now, I ask that we would build our lives on you. That God, we would trust you enough with our lives, that we would see you as the firm foundation, the precious stone, the tested rock in which our faith and our trust and our lives can be built upon. And God, may we experience peace by knowing the one that we build upon has defeated death, has overcome sickness, has got a cattle on 1,000 hills. God, who calls us by our name. That is the one we build our lives upon, Jesus Christ. So God, bless each and every one of us. May we experience the peace that only comes from God. Amen.